Hey, it's your old pal Slim, and this is 70mm podcast for movie fans just like you. Disclaimer at the top of the show, we're not experts, but we do love watching movies. With me each and every episode is my close friend and artist, Danny Haas.
Hello.
And our close friend and disc jockey, Alexis.
Despite what you've heard, I'm 100% innocent.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
We'll see. Every movie that we cover is connected to a theme for that month, and this time it's blockbusted movies that underperform or overperformed. And this time, there was a teaser. It's Proto's pick. Allegedly the biggest box office bomb of all time, Heaven's Gate. And you can use the chapters in your podcast app to skip right to that discussion. Jack Watkins left a Letterboxd review. Quote, "Much like how this film almost destroyed a studio, this film almost destroyed me. Do I even like movies anymore after this?" End quote. Proto, your thoughts on that review?
I mean, Jack, I felt that way too. I remember Jurassic World 3. Remember that? Can we still make good movies? We'll get through this, Jack.
Week 2 of the heat wave crushing our great nation, Proto. How do you feel?
You guys okay
Can we
up
get a health check on you in New Jersey with the heat wave pummeling us right now?
Yeah, it's intense out here. Me and my son, we went outside to have our lunch. Because if it's nice out, now that it's nice out, well, supposedly nice out, you want to go out and eat outside. And I heated up some pizza. We went out on the picnic bench. And my son said, "Dad, I think my pizza's getting hotter. Can we go back inside?" So that's the state of New Jersey right now.
I get heat advisory texts maybe every 2 hours on my phone from the weather app telling me to stay inside. It's too hot. It's hotter than Florida right now, Danny. Is that what you're telling me?
When you sent me your picture of your weather app, our high today was only 88.
Oh my God.
You guys are in the 90s?
Yeah, it's getting hotter tomorrow.
We don't see 90s until next Monday.
It's not
It's
safe
only
out
91.
there. I need everyone
Christ
to stay
alive.
safe. Who's listening?
Stay indoors.
Stay indoors, please. We need to announce next month's theme.
Oh,
It's right around the corner. There's 5 weeks in the month. So we got
Huge.
a whole lot of planning to do. We have not done this theme since last March. And it was a great play on words when we did it last time. But next month is going to be Leading Ladies Volume 4.
Volume
Doing it again.
4.
It was such a hit. It's the first time I think we've ever done a theme 4 times.
It's a good theme.
Last year it was Leading Late Tees, and it was L80s. Remember that?
Oh,
we
yeah,
had to
that was
pick
a
from
good
the
one.
80s.
That was great. Wow.
9 to 5, Nausicaa, Pretty in Pink, and When Harry Met Sally. But this time we're gonna do something we haven't done in an even longer time. We're gonna be doing a double feature episode. We're gonna do 2
Gosh.
movies in one episode, and it's gonna be Mia Goth's X and Pearl in the same episode, leading off the month.
Yep.
Unreal. Party, you haven't
Never
seen
been done.
Pearl, right? You're ready to get in this trilogy. Is that true?
That's true. I watched X a few weeks ago because I was kind of gearing up for this Maxine release. But I haven't seen Pearl, but I'm very excited to watch this finally.
Which is first, Pearl or X
X
in the
That's a
timeline?
great question.
I mean,
X is
in the
before Pearl?
The viewing order is X, and then Pearl.
Oh, okay.
But Pearl is like, well, you got to watch it to find out. I can't answer
Okay.
that anymore. I can't do it.
So I'll watch X first.
And then the week after that, we're going to be doing Maxine. That's official. We're so excited for this frickin' 80s slasher porn industry movie that we had to add it to the slate. Getting a video chat from James. What's happening right now? James,
James,
please
go to
record.
bed.
James, please. So that's very exciting, but we need to plan out the rest of the month. We're going to announce the whole month right off the bat. So we have X and Pearl, double feature, double VHS. Then Maxine the week after that. And now Danny needs to tell us what he's choosing for your pick for the month.
Gosh, we're doing it at the top of the hour. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm tired of this pick getting looked over. We're going to do Judy Garland's Wizard of Oz.
Oh.
It's time.
Okay.
Redemption.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Righting a
Redemption time.
wrong. Remember Proto's story from last week where we almost got Wizard of Oz? Dang.
So close.
You know what I have on my
so-
desk right now?
Do you have the 4K?
Believe it or not. Believe it or not. Hold on.
Or is it a
The
VHS?
4K in the wrapping.
Oh,
Wizard of Oz.
yes.
My gosh.
I'm excited. I haven't seen this movie in a very long time. Great
Mhm.
choice.
Same. Thank you.
Let's see. I think it's Proto. It's your turn. What are you going to choose?
My turn. Well, with this, with what movie did I pick this? Heaven's Gate, movie we're covering tonight. This is a long movie, very drama, romance, serious stuff. 3-4 hours long. I figured let me turn the tables and go in a different direction. So I wanted to cover a movie that I've heard good things about, a director that we haven't covered. My pick is John Waters' 1994 Serial Mom,
Oh
What
my
the-
God. Yes. Holy
starring
cow.
Kathleen Turner.
I'm stunned. This is one of the most formative movies I've ever seen in my life. Kathleen Turner.
What is this?
It's a crime comedy.
Sam Waterston back on the pod.
Wow. She's the perfect all-American parent, a great cook, and a homemaker, a devoted recycler, and a woman who'll literally kill to keep her children happy. This, not to spoil our segment, I can't wait for this
Okay.
episode, but this might be the first time I've ever seen a woman's breasts in this movie.
Say no more.
We'll get into it, folks. That's all I can say right now. We'll get into it. Wow, what a month! This is shaping up to be an incredible month.
We'll see. What's your pick?
I had a lot of picks. I had to whittle them down. A lot of. I was thinking this could be a great big show for us. But there's one actress. I can't remember the last time we've covered a movie of hers. I'm looking it up. There's certain movies that don't count, but that'll make sense once I reveal it.
yeah.
But Cate Blanchett. Ever heard of her?
No.
Oh, I love Kate.
Serendipity.
It's not Tar.
Benjamin
All right,
Button.
and we're not doing Tar. But Todd did a different movie in 2015 called Carol. You ever heard of it?
Oh.
Have heard of it.
Isn't Carol a Christmas movie?
An aspiring photographer develops an intimate relationship with an older woman in 1950s New York. We're going hard.
Todd the King.
Todd the King, back on the pod for the first time. So, what a month. That's an insane slate of movies, if I can be frank.
It's a big month.
I'm excited. Leading Ladies V4, Volume 4. Let's just say hello to Angela, Chris, Max, and Peter, who all joined this week on our Patreon. They got access to the VHS Village Discord, discounts on Danny's Prince, and just a reminder, we unlocked Shin Godzilla for all patrons, free and paid, on patreon.com/70mm. The art last week. I mean, people are still talking about it. They're still
Nuts.
beaming about this art, Danny.
Pretty excited. It was fun to work on.
Amazing.
Thank you. That's all I got to say.
Amazing as always.
I'm still working on the Heaven's Gate art.
Take your time.
It's going to take as long as the filming
I'm
of the
going to push the
movie.
budget up.
By 500%. Proto, Inside Out saved cinema this past week. You saw it in theaters. You were contributing to the savings. Can you walk
Yeah,
us
what
through
was
how that went?
This apparently is having the best opening weekend of the year. I think I saw 180 million. Don't
What?
quote me on that. Something insane. I didn't even know there was that much money available for movies. But yeah, Inside Out 2 did a family movie, morning trip. Actually, it was great. 10:30 showing.
Oh my.
Wow.
Yeah. Nothing like getting the family out the door early, feed them breakfast. That way you don't have to give too much popcorn. We said no candy. It's too early for candy. So we were able to nix the candy.
Okay.
They weren't happy about it, but it worked out. Yeah, we got there. I didn't get a Prime Energy drink spilled on my lap this time, which was great. Call back to Shrek 2. But yeah, Inside Out, it's what can I say? It's more of Inside Out. Did you like Inside Out 1? If you did,
question.
I think you'll like this movie. I don't think it's not breaking any new ground, but it's kind of like a solid Pixar movie. I gave it 3 stars. I had a good time with it. It made me laugh. It made me cry like every good Pixar movie does.
Oh.
I know Slim, you being in constant DMs about this, that there's, hockey as a major feature. Everyone patiently or anxiously awaiting your viewing. So that was kind of fun. Although I felt one of the things I said about it and talking to with my son about it, or my daughter, we both felt like the story felt very small for what it was like talking about, because the character at this point is like hitting puberty and like gets new emotions and goes through some stuff. But even with that, it feels like the story could be pretty big, but in her life, it's like a very small window of things. And the whole hockey thing, even though it's like, this is something we all can relate to, of like feelings and, changing, it felt very niche, like, and that they would go in this direction with the story. So in some ways it felt kind of like an odd choice to make this girl in San Francisco, like, play hockey and like, this is her thing. But I mean, it looked great. Like the hockey scenes and stuff. It was fun to watch. So
you want to get on the ice? Is that what you're saying? You want to get some skates on?
I mean, I'd love to get on the ice, seeing your GoPro videos and, seeing Inside Out 2. Yeah, it's really what makes me want to get out there.
The perfect combo.
Right. Exactly.
I can't remember most of Inside Out. I remember liking it, but
Bing Bong? You gotta remember Bing Bong.
Yeah, Bing Bong.
I would die for Riley.
Forgot about Bing Bong. How come we don't have like a Bing Bong ride in Disney? Do we? We don't have anything Bing Bong, right?
No.
Sheesh.
Not that I'm aware of. Someone should know.
Missed opportunity. What about Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? You watched that too, right?
Oh my
Is that this past-
God. This movie,
Talk about it.
Has it aged
it's
well?
hard. You know what? It's hard to talk about without getting emotional, honestly. I had just the best time watching this. I haven't seen this, I think, since I was a kid. And Jenna and I, we were just walking down like memory lane watching this. I mean, watching it, like everything floods back. All the scenes, the sets. And it's really cool to watch this movie now, just as an adult, like more understanding of how movies are made. Like when you're a kid, this movie is really incredible. Like the sets, like the practical stuff in this is so cool. Like the sets of them out in the backyard. It just looks so fun. And so seeing it now and just knowing that like every single part of this was made by hand, is so cool. I would love to do this on the show at some point. Like this movie it's like so our kind of movie. I think it would be so fun to talk about. I mean, Joe Johnston, this was his debut movie. He did this before Rocketeer, and he worked with Lucas, and you can even see there's certain Lucas aspects in this movie, like certain transitions he does. It reminds me of George Lucas movies. It reminds me of Steven Spielberg was an executive producer on this, so it's like influenced by him too. So it has like so much that watching it now is just, it's so much fun. And then Rick Moranis is like a genius in this. Oh God, it's so good.
That's really interesting you say that, because I don't think I've watched it as an adult. So I would never have picked up on any of the isms of Spielberg or Lucas or anybody like that. So yeah, I definitely need to watch it as an adult now.
Yeah, it reminded me of like an Amblin movie too, but without like the edge that like Amblin movies have of like someone getting killed or
Yeah,
you
they
know.
would have chopped up a kid in the lawnmower blades in an Amblin movie.
Joe Johnston, he had the sauce, right? With Honey.
He
I
never
Shrunk
lost the
Kids.
sauce.
All right, well, hold on a second. Let's go through the filmography here.
Please.
Jurassic Park 3.
Never lost
Hidalgo.
the sauce. Sauce is still there.
The Wolf Man with Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins. Captain America, good movie.
Banger.
But the next on his list is a movie I've never even heard of. Not Safe for Work. With Max Minghella and Eloise Mumford.
Huh?
2,000 people have logged this on Letterboxd. Can someone do some research on this movie? What is it? The movie after that, The Nutcracker and the Four Realms.
Mm-hmm.
So, Joe, come home. Come back to us, Joe. Please. We need you. Let's do another Rocketeer movie.
I think he's retired.
Joe, come out of retirement and do a Rocketeer sequel. You know?
Joe, just rest.
Cliff's grandkids.
Oh, something else I thought while watching this is like, how did they not, well, especially after remembering that he did Captain America, how did they not give Joe Johnston the reins to do a Star Wars movie? That's what we needed. Okay. I mean, he worked with Lucas. Like, what are we doing here?
Right.
Well, yeah, George wasn't giving up the reins after. That's true. I mean, sequel stuff.
Yeah. He was too busy with Jurassic Park.
JJ was holding too tight.
Tia Leone. One of the most annoying characters in film. Tia Leone in that movie.
I never remember. Is that the one with the Nokia phone?
I think so.
Okay.
William H. Macy's in that one. Remember that?
Oh, God.
Yeah. Streaming on.
I remember liking it.
Yeah, I remember liking it too.
Moving on. We got to move on. We're running out of time. Danny, anything you want to talk about that you watched this week?
I watched two movies that were new to me. Both, I think I gave 5 stars. One I know I did. Perfect Days, 2023, Wim Wenders. It's a perfect film. It falls into that slice of life, Jean Dielman kind of following a person through their day-to-day life. And Hirayama, I think is his name. He's a toilet cleaner in Japan. I think it's called the Tokyo Toilet. And it's just one of those great where you follow someone's day to day, you follow the hiccups along the way, the people he meets, the people who's in his life, and how they can play into just throwing a wrench into your process, into your kind of everyday life. And he's amazing in it, like absolutely phenomenal performance. It's a gorgeous film. It's got he has like his drive to work kind of music, and it's a lot of fun. It's a really great film. I really love this movie.
I do have this movie on my watch list, streaming on Hulu right now.
Yeah, it's on Hulu.
Yeah,
I watched it on the airplane.
Praise.
So,
yeah, that 5-inch screen you were looking at on that airplane.
Yeah. I sat like an inch from it because I couldn't get enough. Love that film.
What would Wim think?
Wim Wenders, he'd be proud of me, making it count.
Right.
A second film on the flight home, I gave it 4.5 stars. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, I watched for the first time, and I just need us to do a spy month sometime soon so we can do some of these great spy movies. I fell in love with this film. I think if I had watched this not on an airplane, it's a 5-banger, but I was distracted a bit, and it's long. It's not a short one, but man, it's a slow burn spy movie. Trying to find a mole in during the Cold War, I think, and in MI6, and Gary Oldman. It could be my favorite role of his. I really loved him in this film.
Wow.
And the supporting cast is crazy good too. It's a great story. It's something that they kind of just lay it out for you. They don't really, I think I said in my review, they don't hold your hand, kind of trying to make sure that you're understanding and keeping up. And it's phenomenal. And it's gorgeous, like spy 70s, the grain in this film. I just had a great time watching it. I wish I'd seen it in theaters.
More loved role than Sirius Black. Harry
Yeah, definitely. For sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what about, we were talking about spy movies. I don't know if it was Proto or someone else dropped Spy Game.
Oh,
Robert Redford. I mean, his hair in this backdrop is wild.
he had the sauce.
Jeez,
Speaking of
Louise.
hair, not to pivot back,
Yeah.
the head of hair that they give Tom Hardy and Benedict Cumberbatch in Spy Game or in Tinker Tailor is horrendous. It's scary bad.
Worse than the hair from the Von Erich movie, The Iron Claw, on some of those characters.
I would say on par, especially Tom Hardy's. I don't know what they were doing with his hair, but Benedict's is just as bad.
Benedict Cumberbatch. Remember when we watched 1917 to kick off this podcast? 2020.
Oh yeah.
When are we going back?
I've been wanting to rewatch.
I know, me too.
1917.
On your OLED.
Yeah.
OLED.
We got to get into this movie, this Heaven's Gate, because we got a lot to cover. On
We have a little
the
budget
biggest
and a lot to cover.
box office bomb in movie history. Allegedly, we'll get into it. We watched a documentary about it. Disclaimer: we're not experts. Just right off the bat, folks. Episode 224. This is Proto's pick. Michael Cimino, Heaven's Gate. Proto, what's this movie about?
In 1890, cattle barons of Wyoming plot with the U.S. government to kill off poor European immigrants who are stealing cattle to feed their families. Marshal Jim Averill wants to save the immigrants of his county, but knows that there is little that can be done to stop the power of a man in a bowler hat. Meanwhile, Jim has his jimmies in a knot over Ella, who runs a brothel out of a log cabin. Problem is, Ella also has the hots for Nate, a man working for the cattle barons. When the cattle barons' posse of killers finally get to town, the whole county will have to decide whether they will flee for their lives or stay and fight for Heaven's Gate.
Well done. Golly. Did we know what we were getting into when Proto announced this movie last episode?
He
Did
knew.
we-
That's the thing. He knew what he was
Did
doing.
I?
to
his
us.
machinations. Right off the bat, there's many versions of this movie to watch. Just get it out in the open, folks. I tried to make sense of it in our private DMs, and I got screwed. I somehow screwed myself. Like, it's like when Vince McMahon said Brett screwed Brett. It's like Slim screwed Slim. So there's this Criterion disc that I believe we all watched because this is the official Cimino approved restored version from 2012. There's a Blu-ray, I think a DVD. That's kind of like the official version. However, there's shorter versions that is considered the wide release from 1981. It like was released in its long version. It was pulled after a week at Cimino's request, and they eventually released a shorter version. So that's the version that's on Tubi and Pluto,
Okay.
and allegedly, I was told, on Canopy, you know, the digital library service, support your local library. So after I watched the Criterion, I was like, you know what? I want to see what this shorter version is like. And I fired up Canopy. It said 2 hours, 34 minutes. 90 minutes into this movie, I'm like, I don't notice anything different in this version. And I hit pause, and the metadata is wrong. I'm just watching the Criterion version again. It's like 3.5 hours long. So I was rewatching the Criterion version again.
God.
For,
Holy
for
cow.
no reason. I'm like waiting. I was like, this kind of feels like the same movie. It is, idiot. You've been watching the same movie. Eventually, I did start to watch the wide release version, the 2.5 hour version, to see what that was like. And then eventually I was like, F this. I'm not watching this movie a third time. And I shut it off maybe after about 45 minutes. So yeah, there's a huge backstory about this movie, which we'll get into. But Proto, you talked about it a little bit last week. Did you know I think everyone knows that it's like a big box office bomb. But did you know like how much there actually was to the story of Heaven's Gate, which we kind of educated ourselves about by watching this hour-long documentary?
Yeah. Well, I think the first time we did Blockbusted Month, this movie came up because it's on all the lists, right? Like this is like the number one movie that's talked about a lot of the times, because it did in a way end United Artists, which is like huge. They this documentary we talk about, like it was founded by Charlie Chaplin and company. So it's like, it's a big deal. So I knew of that in kind of like the history that it had and the effects. But watching this documentary, and I'm glad, Danny, that you found this and shared it with us, because I didn't know this existed. Was really illuminating.
It's on YouTube if anyone wants to watch it.
Yeah, it's readily available. But it's a great documentary that gives you there's interviews with producers and cast behind the scenes. Chris Christopherson's in it a lot, and they're very candid about just like the experience and what it was like with Cimino. And it's narrated by Willem Dafoe, and it gives like a great like just history of the whole process from the beginning, what the deal was with United Artists, and then like the after effects of this whole story. And after seeing it, I kind of felt like, whatever you think of this movie, as like a person who loves movies, like this feels like an important piece of like the history of Hollywood. There's many things that you could read about and learn, but this is kind of cool because it's like you watch a movie and then you can kind of see just like the effects that it had on the industry. That, in this, they're kind of saying is like there's ripple effects now, which is really cool.
The irony of Willem narrating this, hour-long documentary about the downfall of Heaven's Gate is the fact that Heaven's Gate was his first theatrical movie, and Cimino fired him on the spot on set for laughing during a scene, which is insane to me.
It was pretty cool. It's like in the documentary, they're like 20 years ago, Heaven's Gate changed the industry. And it's like now 40 years ago, it's like, it's in like another 20 years have passed since this movie. And you only hear about it just kind of like in jokes, like Heaven's Gate, so bad. It's like, it killed the career of Michael Cimino. Michael Cimino is just coming off The Deer Hunter. They talk about it in the doc. And United Artists, I think it's kind of lost to me and maybe most people, but like the basis of United Artists was to put the like writer director first. And like, you want to make this movie about this? Go ahead. Just come back to us in a few months or like 6 months from now when it's done, and we'll sell it. Like we'll put it out there. So they gave like free reign to these auteurs because they trusted them to do so. But then, over the course of filming this movie and going over budget and being so late, like Michael Cimino and the executives at this movie, the executives at United Artists who were left at United Artists after an exodus, like they all just like got so screwed. Like they screwed each other.
Yeah.
Michael Cimino screwed it for everybody. And then they said like, this isn't going to be the way movies are made anymore because this is what happens when you screw up and we're left holding the bag. What I didn't realize was that when the documentary talks about how Cimino was rushed to finish the movie, after so much had happened during the production, like we need to have this movie in theaters by this date. So he had to like rush to edit after finally getting the movie done. And the movie in theaters did so poorly that it was his request to pull the movie after a week, which I didn't realize because you hear all these stories like Heaven's Gate only lasted 1 week in theaters before being pulled and edited down. It was his decision to do that. He's like, give me more time to edit this movie and then we'll put it back in theaters. And he did. It's like, the shorter version that is on Tubi and Pluto. But by that time, it like screwed him even more. Like, I wonder what the legacy of this movie would have been if it just stayed in theaters and didn't have this like, pulled after 1 week disaster, storyline.
Yeah, I love the bit too, though. They say that the first cut that he gave, like contractually, it said like no longer than 3 hours. And his first cut was 5.5 hours. Like Cimino's, like his balls dealing with the studio and is just like insane. Like he was the king. Like he declared himself king and like he was going to do whatever he wanted. And I'm like wondering like, wait, how does this work? Like if someone gives you a budget, but you just keep spending the money, like where's the money coming from? Like how can they not control this guy? But like the way they explain it in the doc is cool. Of it's just like at that point, they were too committed to like cancel the project. And they kind of believed in Cimino enough with Deer Hunter's success that it was kind of like this perfect storm of them being committed, but then also having this director who was like a force of nature who would not stop.
Who had just won Oscars too for Deer Hunter, like I think like month before shooting the film.
Yeah.
I mean, and United Artists had just gone back to back to back with Best Pictures too, with One Flew the Cuckoo's Nest, Rocky, and Annie Hall. And then Deer Hunter was the next year. And then so of course they're going to do whatever for him.
Yeah.
One thing I thought was crazy I read about that Cimino did when he got an advance of like $1 million something. And when they found the shooting locations in Montana, he bought the land and then leased it back to the studio to film on.
What?
With his advance of the movie.
Oh my God.
Like insane.
That sounds like, who's the Netflix producer who does all the Western shows? Didn't he do
Ty
something like that?
Sheridan. It's
Yeah, I
his
feel
ranch
like
or
I've heard that.
something.
I've heard that story about him, about how he rents his own ranch to Netflix to film his stuff.
It feels like a monopoly.
The
Somehow.
Cimino movie.
Somehow this is illegal.
So I had seen The Deer Hunter when I was younger and working at the video store, and I remember thinking it was a great movie. I don't know how entertained I was necessarily by The Deer Hunter. I don't think I've watched it since then. But then, like, you look at Cimino's career afterward, and I think I had just watched Mickey Rourke, Year of the Dragon, which I think was co-written by Oliver Stone, which I liked a lot.
Oh.
And that was his follow-up after like 5 years to this, I think. And then he did like another Mickey Rourke movie, and then the Sicilian. I didn't even know Mickey Rourke was even in this movie until he just like appeared in the shadows. But we'll go around the room, weave in some stuff from the documentary and our thoughts on this viewing. So Proto, this is your pick. What's at the top of your list with thoughts on this viewing?
The top of my list is how I felt like a lot of this movie didn't make sense to me. Like I understand the main story, right? Of like the cattle barons coming, they're going to kill these people. Like the big picture stuff made a lot of sense, like made perfect sense. But I think it was more of like the stuff with the characters that was confusing. And I couldn't, while I was watching it, it's like, I'm not stupid, but it just felt like the information wasn't there for what was going on. So even like while watching it, I get into the end of the movie and I'm not entirely sure who Chris Christopherson, Jim Averill, like what his character, like what is his job? Like, I don't think at any point they say he's a marshal. Christopher Walken's character, it's not until like the last act of the movie that I realized that like, oh, he works for the cattle. He's an enforcer for them. He's basically like a mercenary already there.
Assassins.
So like, I didn't understand that either. But there was just like a lot of things. I mean, Jeff Bridges' character, I still don't know really who he was or like he owned this building, I guess. But there was those things, but then also just like so many little details that I felt like I was completely lost while watching this.
Yeah.
That made it just kind of feel bad.
The feel bad movie of 1980, whatever year this movie came out.
It's funny because we were rolling. Sorry, Slim. I'm gonna cut you off. You get to intermission, and I was like, I don't know what has happened so far. Like I'm not totally clear on anything. Like I was in the same boat as you, Proto. I don't know whose job's what. I don't know I don't know why they both want to marry the same person, but he doesn't want to marry her. He just wants her to leave town. Like it was just like, it was so confusing, and the intermission hits and I'm like, crap, I'm only halfway through. I don't know what's going on. Yeah. Insane.
Yeah, I should also point out that there's yet another version of this movie on Vudu. There's the separate version digitally that's available is different than the other 3 versions that are available and has like an extra 4 minutes. Yeah, there's in the doc they do talk about how they legit thought that this was going to be the next Gone with the Wind. So some of my thinking of like watching this movie, I tried to picture like that kind of gigantic epic where it kind of felt like a Gone with the Wind-ish movie where it's long. Some of the stuff is barely explained. And like, maybe this will make sense an hour from now. I have no idea. So there was a lot. I mean, there's a lot going on. It's a long movie. Like first of all, the credits are insanely long. It felt long. Remember how we thought the Superman credits were the longest credits in movie history?
God.
This is long. This
So
feels
true.
longer than the Superman credits. A lot of this stuff is just kind of explained barely in lines in conversation. And even then, I felt like the audio was kind of hard to understand. I think the Criterion version has like improved audio, but man, I turned those credits on instantly. I was like, I have no idea what the F these people are saying.
Yeah, it was really hard to hear a lot of the lines throughout this. I did the same thing because I kept turning it up and I was like, I never go over 30 on my TV. Why is this so low?
It's unsafe to go that high.
I turned the credits on or the captions on as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so that when in the time that I did watch the shorter version, the audio was worse. Like it's quieter and a lot of
Oh
that
my
stuff. So they did improve it on the Criterion, which is a strange thing to say.
Another thing that was confusing to me was there's a lot of scenes where Chris Christopherson's character is like blackout drunk.
Yeah.
But I'm like, why? Like it just felt weird that he was just like always drunk, but there was like nothing built on that as a character. And I felt like all the characters had that. Like there's just like these weird things that were going on that weren't really explained.
My interpretation of that on the second and third viewings of the movie were they veered off course from what they thought was going to happen when they graduated. Like they had the world was their oyster, at that graduation, and they were going to do big things. And then fast forward where, he thought he was going to do big things, but he's like a marshal in a town where people are being murdered and he like barely can do anything about it. And then John Hurt, the like poet laureate, whatever, he talked a big game, but he's not doing anything. He's just like standing there while people are getting murdered, and he's still a member of the upper class. So that kind of like leads into my thought about, the love story. It wasn't until the second viewing that I started to get, honestly, because I was so bored, because Christopher Walken doesn't show up until it feels like 2 hours into the Criterion cut. And he's a major portion of this movie. He's just like barely there. And then he's in it a lot. And I like didn't even realize that he was such a major player in the story.
You mean after he killed the guy in the beginning?
Yeah. I was like, is he...
Yeah, he disappears for so long.
He disappears for a while, and they adjust that in different cuts. But I just didn't get the love triangle necessarily because, like you said, bro, there's not really a whole lot explained. Like, he shows up in her brothel, and it's kind of inferred that they know each other, maybe have a history. But, it's just kind of not explained, and you're just supposed to be along for the ride almost. And then in the second viewing, I started, I really wanted Walken to be at the school, to be like an existing character that graduated and they all went in like divergent paths.
Right.
I thought that would have been a good idea. But then I also thought that like Walken's character is the Christopherson that didn't grow up rich. Because there's a couple scenes where he's like almost teaching himself how to write with her. He's writing in the book. He's like trying to fancy up his house with the wallpaper. So it almost felt like this was Christopherson. This was like the other side of Christopherson, the guy that was like poor. He had to work hard to get everything. He wasn't given anything. He's like an assassin to make ends meet. And it just felt like they're totally the total opposite. So on the second viewing, I started to like, okay, I guess I can get that. However, the love triangle stuff just didn't really work for me and was kind of plodding.
Michael Cimino's Challengers.
Yeah. What? Yeah, the love triangle. I felt like there was the same scene like 5 times in the movie where they're like talking with Ella. It's like one or the other, like, "Hey, will you choose me? Will you go with me?" And Ella's like, "Well, I love it here. I can't." And that scene, I was like, am I like going crazy? Did like I skip back to the same scene because it felt like the same thing. And after this movie was over, I was trying to think of like what happened. And those scenes of like one-on-one conversations with Ella is all that like came to mind. Like, I feel like the middle chunk of this movie, that's all I can remember. And maybe that's all there was.
Oh.
And I'll never know.
While we're talking about Ella, why did she die at the end? Or why'd she get blown away at the end?
I mean, what's his face got his revenge. He wanted to kill them all.
Canton.
Yeah.
Oh, she was on the list.
Yeah, she was on the list.
Oh. And then she didn't survive because he wasn't on that wasn't her on the boat.
No, I think
No.
that was his I think that was his high school sweetheart.
Yeah, that's
But
the
he was
girl from
yearning for.
Harvard.
Oh, okay.
Or college sweetheart, yeah.
How about that boat though?
The steamboat.
Well,
Yo, that
in
boat
the
was-
other cuts, they show the boat early in the movie, and Christopherson does a voiceover.
What?
Yeah, he's like
What in the
narrating
world?
what's happening and almost gives clues as to like, I had high hopes for saving the world, but things changed. And then like he's on the train, and it's like 20 years later. So he narrates it. Yeah, that was like a big thing in the shorter version.
Wow, that feels like it would be so much better because that
Yeah.
final scene felt like one of the weirder endings I've seen. Like, because there's no lines of dialogue. It's like Ella
Mhm.
gets murdered, and then it cuts to 20 years further into the
Mhm.
future, and he's just on his boat. Like, and he doesn't even like really have any kind of moment there. It's just like this really weird, awkward scene.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and
confusing.
they did that aging makeup on him, and I said, I wrote down Chris aging in the Tom Skerritt. That's what he looked like to me. I thought it was
Yes.
Tom Skerritt on the boat.
Young Chris Christopherson, I couldn't stop staring at him at that graduation. I mean, he's like 50 filming that scene. I couldn't like any young kid in that movie. That scene was nuts. Yeah, like the ending when he's kind of just being miserable. I don't know. Like I started to think like, oh, this is the scene where he like looks back wistfully over his life. Like, was it worth it? He finally got what he wanted, but is he happy? So the ending was okay for me. I just wish there was more about like, where's this wealth coming from?
Mm-hmm.
And also like, why bother even being a marshal? He has to have infinite wealth at that point. It's almost like, who cares? Like, what is the bonus for him to get in this, mixed up in this? And I guess that's maybe could be like why he was drunk all the time. Like he's just kind of like miserable with some of the decisions he's made, but go home, get on your yacht. There's no reason for you to be here. Besides looking great in the 3-piece suit, honestly. He looked great in everything he was in.
Even things he wasn't in. Christ.
I think the first movie I saw Chris Christopherson in was Blade.
I saw that at the top of his letterbox. I'm like, what is he doing in this film?
Wow.
Yes.
I don't remember him.
Oh, yeah. Trainer in chat says, didn't someone say that too? They called him fake poor. Yeah, I wrote that down. He talks to one of the like military guys. He's like, the one thing that I hate about you, you're a rich man with a good name. You only pretend to be poor.
Mm.
Owned his
His
ass.
hair too. My God, his hair.
Yeah. I have a lot of like lines written down, but then like the next line is, I'm pretty bored. Snoozing. They kill walking. Woof. I'm snoozing a bit. I'm snoozing a bit, but the reflection of the lake and the mountain is sick. Honestly, that's like the whole thing about this movie. There's not a lot that is like bringing you in, but man, does it look good. Like a lot of, I mean, I guess you consider,
Please
you
don't
could
take
say,
my first point. We're
Go
running out
ahead.
of points here.
just
Slim.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Fuck. This film looks great. I was thinking the whole time, I'm like, this film like is a masterpiece, but it's so boring. Like everything looks so good. The vistas of the mountains in Montana, wherever they were at, and even the sets. I mean, it talks about him being an architect or whatever he did before this. And the towns he built, the buildings, the like skate hall, how they were shot. I mean, the cinematography, I think it's a stunning film. And when they talk about him wanting to do like a David Lean Western, like I think they nail the look because it looks incredible. And I thought it was funny. There was a point where it was getting so bad that they even went to David Lean to ask if he would film the rest of the film, but they fired Cimino. And of course he said no. Well, no one wanted to touch it. But man, everything looked great. I love the shots of like the church built right on like the lake area, like incredible. And then anytime with the steam train, I mean, I love a good train. So
the town where the train comes into with like all those buildings with the smoke, like they look like obvious just facades, and because they never showed a different angle that like street, but it looks so good.
Well, they had to tear it down and rebuild it once because the I think they said that the road was 6 feet too wide for Cimino, so he wanted it rebuilt. So they tore the whole down and spent $1 million rebuilding it, tearing it down and rebuilding it.
See, that's what I don't understand. Like
how did they how do they allow that?
Yeah, how does this one guy like what if like 10 people said no to him? Like, Cimino, no, you're crazy. But he's just like, I'm doing this.
Right.
And like you're going to piss off like 500 people, but you just keep doing it. They also have that anecdote of him waiting for this perfect shot in the documentary.
Gosh. Yes.
And like it's overcast. Like they get there in the morning and they can't get the shot and they're waiting and eventually goes to like 3:00 in the afternoon. And someone's brave enough to come up to Cimino and be like, Cimino, what about lunch? Like, we're all hungry here. And apparently there's some kind of like, I guess, fee if you like, you keep the crew and like not feed them.
Oh my god.
And like, he's like racking this up over the hours. And I forget the line, but it was something like, you know, like, what's lunch? Like, you know, what's lunch when we're talking about getting the shot? Like, like he couldn't even fathom breaking
he's
for
like,
lunch.
In 30 years, no one's going to remember lunch. In 30 years, we want them to remember this shot, which like I kind of get, but also it's like, I don't know where was it Wyoming where I'm not sure if they filmed it in actual Wyoming, but like
Montana.
It's gorgeous all the time. Any like half brain like me can set up a camera and get a gorgeous shot. We don't need Michael Cimino out here waiting for the most perfect shot in the history of the universe to get these landscapes. It just all look great.
I think the most insane thing I read that they did was he needed that steam train for the film, and he paid to have a real steam train rerouted to his fake town for the film. Like, wow. That was, they paid the whole track to be rerouted through his town just to have that shot.
United Artists. Rip.
Yeah. I love, anytime there's like an orchestrated sea of people in a movie, I could watch that all day.
Yeah.
I just love that. Like, just knowing that these people aren't here by accident. It's not like they were just like in a city and like turned a camera on. It's like, no, this is a fake town. Everybody's in costume. Everybody, like they said, action, and everyone started moving. And there's so many shots like that are just so cool. I mean, the prologue scene of like them dancing at Harvard is incredible. And then like the roller skate scene
the skating
was
scene
incredible. So all those, I agree. I mean, it's a gorgeous movie.
Apparently the fiddler on the roller skates was the composer because he couldn't get anyone else to do the film.
That kid was like 15.
Yeah, and he did like 3 other of his films after that because they couldn't get John Williams.
I mean, it sounded like Wyoming Godfather music just playing constantly in this movie. It was like 4 hours of this music. And if you don't like it, you're ready to just jump out the window. I mean, I was getting agitated watching it a third time and the music was playing. I was like, I cannot believe you watched anymore with it. I sanity struck and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? So yeah, one of my points was the music. It just honestly feels like the Godfather music. It's that's all I could think about when it was playing. I mean, how do they even get the roller skates into this town? Like, I was just thinking about like, how is this stuff brought in? I mean, they're all amazing roller skaters. That stuff, you can't just pick that up, right? Like,
Right, yeah,
how long have
everyone's
they been doing this in town? Is this all they do? Just roller skate?
Mhm.
Pardo, next on your list.
We talked about it a little bit, but for a movie that's over 3 hours long, I'm kind of amazed at how little character development there seemed to be in this. Like I feel like it's hard for me, other than wanting the relationship with Ella, like both the two main characters. I'm not really sure of like what else we saw from them in terms of either like growth or like what their issues were. I mean, it's interesting hearing your thoughts, Slim, saying, because you've seen it more than once, and just kind of, like leaning more on a second viewing, because like those are things like I wouldn't have even gotten. But the fact that a movie could go like be this long and I feel like be this bare of characters, or like even interesting characters, to me, like I didn't really find them that compelling. It's like, it's just, I mean, I guess it's not that hard to fathom. Like you watch movies all the time that have like little character development, but I guess with something like this, where it's like you have this grand plan, this grand movie, and it to come up so lacking, is kind of surprising to me. And then also to have like characters that are kind of annoying, like the John Hurt character is so annoying in this movie. Like I just, from the beginning, I just want to slap the smirk off this guy's face. This speech that he gives at Hartford, like,
God,
what is even happening? Like, what is the point? Like, who would allow him to speak like this? Like, this is like their graduation ceremony, I'm assuming, and he's getting up there and like acting like just like a belligerent fool in front of all these people, like not interesting or funny or anything, just like an idiot. And that kind of continues the whole movie, this character, until you get to the end where like it didn't even really make any sense. Like they're in the middle of a battle here, and this John Hurt character. Yeah, why would you be there? Like, does he just want to die? I just didn't get it at all. And he, like, every time he was on screen, I was just getting more angry.
Yeah, how did he not get kicked out of the club when Chris Christopherson mentions, I heard you got the death list? Like, did John Hurt just tell you that? Because we didn't tell you that. Like, how is he not kicked out? And he's there continuously with this. Why do they keep him around? Like, kill him. Take him out back. He's causing you grief in this little rich boys club. Not to give credit where it's due to Heaven's Gate as the only person in this state who has seen it nearly three times. His speech does talk about like taking action and how it's imperative for the youth to do what they can for the future. So like you can kind of see that he has done nothing. Like he's not doing anything when he has to take action. He's just like, a wet fish. Like everything's happening whether or not he cares. He just gets drunk instead. So I can kind of see where he just becomes like this depressed drunk. I guess both of them. However, in the shorter version, they cut his speech. I guess I meant wet sock. Masha's correct me. Aren't most fish wet? Thank you. In the short version, they announce that he's about to go up and do a speech, and that scene cuts right to the dancing. So they don't even show his speech. So some people were like, later in the movie, why is John Hurt even here? Like, why is he even in this movie so much? Because he like barely did anything in the flashback. So it's like you're kind of screwed if you do, screwed if you don't. Like you'll get critiques either way, but that's just some backstory on the shorter version. I will also say, I sent this in a DM, but like Christopher Walken in the wide release shorter version is in more of the first 25 minutes than he was in like the first 2 hours of the long version. Like they moved so many of his scenes to the front of the movie. So he's introduced way sooner. He slaps that one dude for mouthing off about Ella in like the first 10 minutes. Like so much of his scenes are moved up. And he's like immediately going to see Ella in the first half hour, 40 minutes. So that's like one thing they tried to course correct on. Whether or not it worked is up for debate. How about the story of them casting Au Pair, Ella, in this movie about how like that's who Chimino wanted. And they're like, well, if she can speak English, yeah, we'll do it. And he's like, yeah, she can speak perfect English. And they go to interview. She can't speak perfect English. They barely understand her. And he apparently like gave his word that if we go to visit her and we can understand, if we can't understand her, then we'll pick someone else. And they all agreed to that. They went to visit her. They couldn't understand her. And he still said, I really want her. Like, so the one executive was like pissed. He's like, you just went back on your word. How am I supposed to trust you in our working relationship? And this was before they even started filming the movie. This guy was getting vibes off the bat about Chimino. And he was right. He's like, I can't trust this guy. But the executives at United Artists were like, just give him the money, cast her, whatever. That guy knew right then.
Yeah. But she's like the best performance in the, I think she's the best performance in the film though. Yeah. Out of everybody.
Well, I mean, didn't one of them say like, why is this young French woman running a brothel in Wyoming? Like it doesn't really make a ton of sense in the story. But she was great in the movie. Danny, next on your list?
Abba talks about something I love. I love that final fight scene. I love the circling of the wagons, the shooting. I thought it was filmed really well, and I really enjoyed it. I know there were parts where I'm just like, I don't understand how circling the wagons worked back then when these fighting techniques. But there was one point that I'm like, why aren't they winning? Why couldn't they have just collapsed on all the people in the middle and just shot them? Because they had them completely surrounded. And then I was just like, why did they wait till the last minute to throw dynamite at them? Because why didn't they just toss that in the middle if they had it? I was so confused by all of that. But I still loved that scene because it looked awesome. I love them coming, the wide shot across the lake with them like coming out of the woodwork across the bridge, and they're starting to circle the camp. It looked amazing. Like everything I loved about this movie, just the way it looked. But that scene, I had a blast watching. And I read that in the original 5-hour version of this film that they showed, that fight scene was 90 minutes long.
Get the F out of here.
That one
90
scene.
minutes?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Insane.
Well, that makes sense because you're asking like, why did that fight take so long? And I think when I got to that point, I thought the same thing. But the answer is clearly that like Chimino just wanted to shoot a long scene.
Yeah.
And I think that like kind of made me angry while watching that. And I kind of started to check out at that point because I was like, this doesn't make any sense. The way this, like, it looks great. Like, it looks amazing. Like what they're able to do, like the camera going along with the wagons and horses around in a circle. Like, it's very impressive, but it felt like this is just kind of like a director flexing, doing what he wants. Like, it doesn't make any story sense. And that kind of was just like frustrating.
The amount of times that Jeff Bridges told Ella to get out of here, like, was like 4 or 5 times. It was like the same shot said over and over again. It was killing me. But
there was some, how about the scene where the guy gets his legs run over by the carriage?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that actually happened.
God.
Then it was put on
Chimino's
film.
like, wait, get that.
There was a couple.
I need you crippled for real.
There's a couple things that were like people got hurt and it's left in the film. Even the animals, like the horse and buggy that got blown up with dynamite, that killed the horse, and it's in the film.
What?
And I think after this film, the disclaimer for no animals were harmed in the making of this film was like heavily enforced after this film, because I think 4 horses died, and all the blood that you see on people, they like used real horse blood on people. And then like the butchering of the cows were like, they really butchered cows for that opening shot. It's like,
of course,
insane. Wow. Insane amount of stuff.
Was it the woman who shot herself at the end of the war? Was that real?
Yo.
Did they keep that in?
How haunting was that shot? That shot was horrifying. Crazy, yeah. It looked way too real.
Yeah.
There's a lot of death scenes that were kind of questionable.
I mean, when the guy gets his legs run over, remember, like, that woman shoots him to put him out of his misery.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
There is a part where I laughed. There's a woman that gets shot in the head, but the way she screams, I had to pause it and listen to it twice because it caught me off guard. It was so funny.
Boy. I mean, I don't have a ton, honestly. I have some honorable mentions, so I'm just probably gonna go through mine.
Go for it.
Do it.
When they were dancing at the graduation, I just liked how they said, "You're beautiful, so are you." I thought that was just a cute little line while they were dancing because it looked like they barely even knew each other at that moment. The cinematography in this movie is wild. There's so many
gorgeous.
beautiful shots of mountains and reflections in water. It's amazing. Honestly amazing. That town is bustling. That town when they get off the train. I love the shot too of him like going through the building for the first time to come out to the train. That was a cool shot. When Christopherson slaps Watterson.
Yo, I have that
knocks him
written down
He
too.
slapped him so hard. That was
It's the greatest slap in cinema. Holy cow.
The cockfighting scene, but Christopherson, his entrance into that building looked amazing. Like through the shadows, like the light comes through. Holy moly. There's also an unreal shot of Ella by the door with the sunlight coming in through Heaven's Gate. I mean, honestly, all my positives are just like random shots.
Yeah.
Walking on a horse by Heaven's Gate in the moonlight. Gorgeous. Walken had this crazy line when there's also this everyone knows that these two are friends, but at the same time, Walken is killing people in the town.
Right.
Like, it's just like this weird, uneasy acknowledgement. And he sits down when Christopherson's having breakfast and Walken goes, "You beginning to sound like a man with a paper asshole, Jim." What an amazing line that was. I just stopped me in my tracks. I was like, I've never heard anyone say that they had a paper asshole, let alone from Christopher Walken.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a compliment or a dig.
Yeah, I don't know either. James Hurt on the horse. Remember, as the war's happening, he's like whining, drunk, but the steam blows by him. Like the smoke is just like surrounding him.
God, what a shot!
Yeah, that's the good stuff right there. The rape scene at the brothel was
rough.
super uncomfortable. And then they showed the shot of like the other women in the building,
what the heck?
dead.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was crazy.
Brutal.
Walken going in and just shooting that guy in the head in the tent next to Watterson. So,
oh my God.
I mean, it looked amazing, but 3 stars. It's just not, the characters just aren't compelling really in any way. Look great though. And one other thing from the documentary is like some of the executives kind of felt like maybe the movie wasn't great, but it didn't really deserve to be eviscerated in the press. Like they talked about how the production of the movie was news, like about how it was going over, so many problems on set. So Heaven's Gate was kind of screwed before it even came out.
How about that story of the reporter?
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah,
They wouldn't
that
allow
reporter?
press on set, so this guy got hired as an extra and worked there for months and was writing a story because he was an extra.
Insane. I love that story.
yeah.
What's a movie that has come out that had a troubled production that was kind of screwed?
Solo.
So yeah, so this is what I thought of. Like other movies have had something similar. So like Solo was a Heaven's Gate in a way.
Yeah.
And I kind of agreed with the executives. Like the press and some of these critics put their own history on the movie without kind of judging for what it tried to do. It's not to say it's great, but like some of these reviews are pretty brutal when it came out.
Yeah. And then they went back and panned Deer Hunter after that too. I remember them saying like they were something about Cimino had said something after their reviews had hit, and then they went back and like re-reviewed Deer Hunter and gave it like scathing reviews.
Oh my God. Yeah.
They were being petty.
Yeah, Trainer points out Megalopolis. It's pretty
getting there, yeah.
fitting for us to do this movie and then Megalopolis is coming out. Like,
Yeah.
the discourse around that movie is going to be.
Yeah.
I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to think about it, honestly. Proto?
Yeah, I'm kind of just down to my honorable mentions. There's a shot of, like you said, there's so many good shots. There's a shot of the immigrants on a dirt road, just like this long train of immigrants, like pulling wagons, marching on the dirt roads. I mean, even the mud looked great in this movie. When Christopherson slaps the guy, they have like a confrontation outside. I think it's after that. And I can't remember what Canton says, but Avril says you'd have to die and be born again. Sick burn. Jeff Bridges blowing up a rooster's anus.
Oh my gosh.
Is this the thing?
I don't know.
The things that he was doing to that rooster to get it ready for the fight.
Yeah, that was unsettling.
The carriage ride on the beach. So the Criterion has bonus features, and there's like it's basically just like Cimino talking about the production what went into it, and that wagon that he Christopherson gives to Ella was like an authentic Studebaker.
Oh my gosh.
Wagon. Like he said, like they found that. And it was before Studebaker made cars. They made wagons like that. And it was like old and rusted, and they got it and they restored this wagon so that they could have an authentic real wagon in the movie. And that wagon actually looks incredible on the beach there, going through the stones. I was like, there's like no jostling in this at all. Like that thing had amazing balance. I love the roller skating scene. That kid, I guess he's a man, composer, roller skating while playing the fiddle. That was incredible. Oh, there's a scene where Walken puts the barrel of his gun up the guy's nostril.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about Walken in this movie. He did look kind of funny. To me, he kind of looked like a comic book, like Western villain. Yeah. He almost didn't look real.
Yeah.
He looked really thin. I don't know if it was from like when Deer Hunter was being filmed. His cheekbones were just like so pronounced in this movie.
He had a great fit though. Those overcoats that all those guys had, they looked so good. Oh, Terry O'Quinn showing up for a minute in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, the train conductor getting shot 6 times. Brutal.
I wrote down how many times you need to shoot the train station guy.
Right, like this guy's a mercenary hired to kill people, and he like can't one-shot somebody. Enough.
It looked like what was it? What do they have him put guns? Is it buckshot? It looks like they were like not even bullets. Like he's just getting pelted by like stone or something. Like for the first 10 minutes of his death.
Sheesh.
How do guns work?
Nobody knows.
Oh yeah, and then the final battle. It's like they're about to win, and then the army rides up with the cavalry, and it's like, I mean, the chaos of this fight, right? Like there is dynamite going off every 5 seconds, and then like some cavalry rides up, and everybody just stops. It's like, oh, the cavalry's here. I guess this battle to the death that we're having, we're just going to stop. And like, that's the end of it. Was kind of goofy to me. There was a lot of like goofy stuff like this. And then, like the scene after where Ella dies, I just felt like that was so like tacked on.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this movie looks gorgeous, but I really had a tough time overall with this. I'm glad we watched this, but I'm giving it 2 stars.
2 stars. Wow.
Let's see. The line, "It belongs in a museum." I was like shook when he said that. The boat at the end is very horny. John Hurt, because of how long the shooting took, he went and filmed Elephant Man and came back and did his scenes in the middle of doing this movie. That's how long it took.
Wow.
Yo, Indiana Jones came out the year after this. So that was an homage to Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
He says it belongs in a museum.
You talk to Steven about this.
Unreal.
I don't know why I wrote down Jack Skellington. Probably Walken.
Because of Walken?
Oh, he has that moment where he comes out and they have hit that cut on his cheek and they have that prosthetic cheek on him. Did you notice how big his face looked? Holy crap. He looked like Jack Skellington. It took me too long to realize that was Sam Waterston. I wrote that down. I couldn't place his face because I've only known
How
him
about
to be
his
old.
his effeminate portrayal of the character? He just sounded like such a big nerd every time he spoke. He was also like, when he was like sashaying in that winter outfit, he had like that big winter hat and his big riding boots.
Yeah, I was confused by that hat. It felt very Russian.
It did. Yeah.
Yeah, I read about the Jeff Bridges character he played, John Bridges, and that's actually a distant relative of his. He owns the brothel now, which I loved that was in that documentary. Did you see that? Did you guys wait till the end?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, he still owns that brothel building. I think this is a gorgeous film. I think it's very boring. I think I'm at 2 stars for this. Yeah. But I am glad we watched it. I think it fits perfectly in this month.
Absolutely.
The fact that this is like one of the biggest turning points in Hollywood too. Like it changed everything for everybody.
This was the budget. When it went over, what was it, 40 million? And the Russo brothers are making a movie for Netflix, and it's cost 300 million. And this movie's only 40 years old.
Let it sink in.
Enough said. Let that sink in. Oh my God. All right, Heaven's Gate, and that's it for Blockbusted.
We did it.
We are finished. We actually have to schedule some Inside Baseball. We have to schedule our next Patreon episode, which is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Got to get that on the books.
Oh.
Encino Man was our most recent exclusive episode, and now Willy Wonka, the one that started all those memes.
The one that got away.
That everyone sees. So next week, we are doing a double feature. We talked about it at the top of the show. It's our first double feature, I think, since Armageddon, Deep Impact. Have we ever done a second double feature?
So it's our second. Second double feature.
And that is going to be Mia Goth and Ty West's X and Pearl. Going to do them both in one episode to kick off Leading Ladies Month, Volume 4. Kirby says X is leaving Netflix on June 30th. Just a heads up. That's a good point. I didn't even look to see where that's streaming. Where's Pearl? Pearl sounds like it's going to Paramount or something, right? Is that a Paramount movie? A24 Neon. It's on Prime. Pearl is on Prime right now, at least. So check your local listings to find out where these movies are streaming. Proto, any closing thoughts as we put Blockbusted in the rear view?
Yeah, closing thoughts. One other movie that I watched this week that I didn't get to talk about for my Criterion Challenge, it's called Peugeot. It's a Brazilian movie, and it's the way I described it in my review, it's like City of God plus La Haine plus some of the darkest experiences you can imagine for a child. So it's about like street kids in Brazil trying to survive in the 70s. Harrowing story. And thinking in light of Heaven's Gate, which I felt like had no character development, this movie happens to be 2 hours long. And I would say it has more development in like 8 different characters in 2 hours than all the character development combined in Heaven's Gate. It's a really heavy movie to watch, but I thought it was an amazing movie. I've never heard anyone talk about this. It was kind of like a blind pick as I was filling out my Criterion Challenge. Knew nothing about it, and I was just blown away by this movie. So it's on the Criterion channel if you're interested. But just an amazing story. So that's my reco. Don't watch Heaven's Gate. Watch Peugeot.
Proto's redemption at the end of the show. We'll see everybody next week for X and Pearl. 70mm is a tape deck production featuring original artwork provided by Danny Haas. Spiritual guidance and V'ger, the robot who loves movies, provided by Pertalexis. Producer at large Dale_A. And music composed by Cinematrix. Prints and other merch are available on 70mmpod.com. This episode was mixed, edited, and produced by me, Slim. Support our Patreon for access to our VHS Village Discord to talk movies with new friends, access to our exclusive episodes in the 70mm vault, discounts on merch, uncut episodes, and a physical membership card mailed to you. To check out other Tape Deck podcasts, find the link in the episode notes. And if you'd like to support our friends at Letterboxd and upgrade to pro or patron status, you can do so with a 20% off discount using the links on 70mmpod.com. Goodbye.
This is a Tape Deck podcast.